The Miller farm had been a fixture on the edge of town for over a century, but it hadn't seen life for decades. Locals spoke of it in hushed tones, a place where the soil itself seemed cursed. Over the years, stories spread about strange flickering in the windows despite the house being empty. Eerie whispers carried by the wind, and most unsettling of all, the crimson stains that seeped through the cracked wooden floorboards. No one dared to investigate too closely, fearing what might be hidden beneath the rotting planks. The stains were fresh some nights, as if the ground was bleeding, a chilling reminder that something terrible had taken root there. The farm's past was riddled with tragedy, disappearances, mysterious deaths, and rumors of occult rituals performed by the last Miller family, desperate to protect their land or perhaps bind something dark within it. Overgrown vines strangled the walls and windows, nature itself trying to reclaim the cursed place, yet the stains persisted, defying time and decay. Town elders avoided the farm's name altogether, warning children never to venture near. Those who ignored the warnings spoke of a heavy atmosphere, a suffocating presence that pressed on their chests and twisted their minds with dread. The silence that surrounded the farm was unnatural, broken only by the occasional sound of cracking wood or a distant, unidentifiable noise that sent chills down the spine. It was a place where shadows seemed to move on their own, and the moonlight barely penetrated the thick canopy of dead branches overhead. The Miller farm was more than an abandoned relic. It was a wound in the earth, bleeding secrets and horrors that refused to be forgotten. Ethan and his friends had always been drawn to the thrill of the unknown, chasing legends and urban myths for the adrenaline rush. When they heard about the Miller farm and its dark reputation, they couldn't resist the temptation. The idea of spending a night in a place rumored to be haunted by something unspeakable was both terrifying and exhilarating. They planned their trip carefully, deciding to arrive at midnight when the farm's eerie presence was said to be armed with flashlights, cameras, and a shaky confidence. They approached the crumbling farmhouse through the tangled underbrush. The air grew colder as they neared, and an oppressive silence fell over them, broken only by the crunch of dead leaves underfoot. Shadows twisted in the moonlight, playing tricks on their eyes as they stepped onto the broken porch. The wood groaned beneath their weight, protesting the intrusion after years of abandonment. Inside, the darkness was almost complete, their flashlights piercing through the blackness in thin beams that barely illuminated the peeling wallpaper and scattered debris. Every creak and drip echoed like a warning, they whispered nervously among themselves, sharing stories to mask the growing fear gnawing at their nerves. As they explored room by room, the atmosphere thickened, the stale scent of decay mixed with something metallic, faint but unmistakable. The deeper they went, the more they felt eyes watching them, unseen but undeniably present. The friends tried to keep their bravado, joking and teasing, but the tension was undeniable. Each step forward was heavier, as if the house itself resisted. Their presence, something about the farm felt alive, waiting, hungry. They had crossed the threshold into a place where curiosity could turn deadly, and the shadows were closing in tighter with every heartbeat. The kitchen was a room frozen in time, its walls stained with years of neglect and something far more sinister. As Ethan's flashlight cut through the darkness, the faint gleam of rust caught his Aja Butch's cleaver, old and resting atop a table smeared with dark, dried blood. The sight sent a chill down his spine, but curiosity pushed him closer. The table itself was cracked and warped, as if heavy use had once been routine here. But the stains told a story of violence, not of simple cooking. Ethan's light flickered briefly, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe and twist across the grimy walls. Then he noticed the carvings, jagged and uneven. They were scratched deep into the wooden panels, covering the wall like a twisted mural. The shapes were chaotic, disturbing symbols that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Among the scratches were words hastily etched but unmistakable. "The harvest comes." The phrase repeated in different sizes and angles, as if some desperate hand had tried to emphasize the warning or the threat. His friends gathered around, their faces pale and eyes wide, the gravity of the discovery sinking in. The cleaver wasn't just a tool, it was a relic of horror, evidence that something gruesome had taken place here, perhaps many times over. The carvings were not random graffiti, but part of some ritual, a message left behind by those who understood the farm's dark purpose. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of iron and rot. A sudden scrape echoed from somewhere deeper in the house, snapping their attention away from the wall. Heartbeats quickened, breaths shallow, as the realization dawned that they were not alone. The phrase "the harvest comes" hung in the air like a curse, a prophecy waiting to be fulfilled. The room seemed to close in, shadows shifting at the edges of their vision, as if the house itself was awakening. What had started as a simple exploration had turned into a brush with something ancient and deadly, and the butcher's cleaver was a silent promise that the farm's horrors were far from over. The chilling carvings whispered secrets no one alive should hear, and the friends were trapped in a place where time, blood, and fear blended into a nightmare just beginning to unfold. The sound came first a low, guttural growl that echoed through the darkness of the basement stairs. It wasn't quite human, nor entirely beast, but something twisted and unnatural. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he hesitated at the top of the staircase, the beam from his flashlight trembling. The air grew colder with every step down, thick with the stench of blood and something worse, decay, mingled with a faint, metallic tint. The walls were close, damp, and covered in dark stains that looked disturbingly fresh. Flickering shadows danced across the rough stone, making the space feel alive and hostile. As the group descended, their whispers faded into tense silence, broken only by the uneven creaks of the old wooden stairs beneath their feet. At the bottom, the basement opened into a cavernous, suffocating chamber. The walls were smeared with thick, glistening blood, dripping down like living veins. Hanging from the ceiling were grotesque trophies, torn strips of flesh pinned to rusty hooks, swaying gently in the stale air. The friends froze, horror rooting them in place. Then, in the far corner, they saw Ita, massive figure crouched low, its skin mottled and slick, eyes burning with a fiery, unnatural glow. It moved with terrible speed and power, muscles rippling beneath the gruesome surface as it lunged. The creature was no mere animal. It was something warped, born from rage and dark rituals, something that should not exist. Screams erupted as chaos broke loose. Ethan stumbled backward, hands slipping against the slick blood as the figure roared and advanced. His friends scattered, swallowed by the shadows, their cries cutting through the suffocating blackness. Every breath was ragged, every movement desperate. Blood sprayed in furious arcs as the creature struck, and the basement became a massacre chamber. Ethan's mind screamed to run, but his body was drenched in fear and something warm and sticky hit. Own blood mixed with that of others. The nightmare was no longer a story. It was flesh and bone, teeth and claws, and it was hunting him in the suffocating dark, the glowing eyes fixed on him, promising that escape was a cruel illusion. Ethan barely made it out of the basement, his body trembling and soaked in blood knot, all of it his own. His friends had disappeared into the darkness, swallowed by the nightmare that lurked beneath the Miller farm. As he stumbled outside, the first pale light of dawn cast long shadows over the decaying farmhouse, giving the world a false sense of calm. But Ethan knew better. The horror wasn't over. The fresh footprints in the dirt near the porch told a chilling story. Something had left the farm with him. Or maybe something was leading him deeper into the woods. His mind was a whirlwind of panic and disbelief. When he finally reached his house, the nightmare clung to him like a second skin. Days passed, but Ethan didn't rest. He was haunted by memories of blood and shadow and a growing emptiness that gnawed at his soul. Then the police came, alerted by concerned neighbors who noticed his sudden disappearance. When they searched his house, they found it abandoned, the door ajar, and an eerie silence hanging heavy inside. In the basement, the same grotesque carvings from the Miller farm adorned the wall's jagged symbols, and the words, "The harvest comes," scrawled over and over again. But Ethan was nowhere to be found. The truth settled like a poison. Ethan wasn't just a victim. He had become part of the curse. The crimson stains weren't from his escape, but from the ritual that transformed him into the next harvester. The monstrous figure he had seen wasn't an enemy, it was himself, trapped in a cycle of eternal torment, bound to collect souls for the blood-soaked harvest that would never end. The farm's dark legacy lived on, and Ethan's fate was sealed. Lost between flesh and shadow forever, part of the nightmare he once sought to uncover.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.